Barrett versus NYC Mayor Zohran Mamdani, the billionaire texts expose election rigging. A sub to the channel would be appreciated. The Supreme Court's Great Hall had never felt so alive with raw, electric tension, not even during the fevered oral arguments of Dobbs v. Jackson Women's Health Organization or the fraught deliberations of Bush v. Gore back in 2000. It was November 18, 2025, precisely 10:00 a.m. EST, and the chamber, with its towering marble columns veined with the subtle cracks of 2 centuries of history, was transformed into a cauldron of human passion, a coliseum where the gladiators of law, politics, and social justice clashed under the unblinking gaze of history itself. The air was thick, almost viscous, laced with the mingled scents of fresh-brewed coffee wafting from the justices' private mugs in their chambers, the sharp tang of expensive cologne and perfume from the Wall Street donors and lobbyists crammed into the gallery, and the underlying odor of desperation and defiance that always seemed to cling to cases where democracy, immigration, and the soul of a city were on trial. The temperature hovered at a precise 68 degrees Fahrenheit, courtesy of the building's state-of-the-art HVAC system installed during the 2024 renovation to handle the surging demand for live-streamed hearings, but the room felt stifling, as if the walls themselves were closing in under the weight of the moment. Every single seat in the 400-person capacity chamber was filled to bursting, and then some law clerks in their starched white shirts and conservative ties, their legal pads open on knees, pens poised like daggers ready to strike at the first sign of weakness. Conservative activists in red America First pins and crisp suits, clutching briefcases stuffed with amicus briefs and whispering strategies to one another in hushed tones. Progressive advocates in blue Justice for Immigrants buttons and No Human is Illegal armbands, their faces etched with a mix of defiant hope and weary resolve, gripping protest signs rolled up in their laps. And a press corps so dense, so frenzied, that CNN reporters had to share a single folding chair with Reuters correspondents, their laptops balanced precariously on thighs, fingers flying across keyboards in a symphony of clicks as the live stream counter ticked upward like a doomsday clock, surpassing 16.7 million viewers and accelerating toward 20 million in real time, the numbers flashing on a side monitor like a stock ticker on steroids. Each tick a reminder of how this hearing was not just legal theatre, but a global spectacle. The faint hum of the overhead lights, those massive crystal chandeliers casting prismatic rainbows across the polished oak benches, and the engraved names of past justices on the frieze, seemed to underscore the heartbeat of the room, fast, erratic on the edge of arrhythmia, a collective pulse that quickened with every passing second. Someone in the fourth row, a young immigrant rights organizer with a No Human is Illegal tattoo on her forearm, and a hijab pinned with a Palestinian flag, fainted from the tension at exactly 10:02 a.m., her body slumping forward with a soft thud that echoed off the vaulted ceiling like a warning shot from history. The bailiff, a burly man with a mustache like a broom and a face etched with 25 years of courtroom brawls and bailiff duties, didn't even break stride. He waved over a medic from the back of the hall, who whisked the woman out on a stretcher without so much as a pause in the proceedings, the wheels squeaking faintly on the marble as the show, this grand, tragic, unyielding show, pressed relentlessly on, the justices unmoved, the lawyers undeterred, the spectators holding their breath as if the entire edifice might crack under the strain. At the absolute epicenter of this maelstrom, perched on the elevated bench like a sentinel guarding the gates of Olympus, sat Justice Amy Coney Barrett, her posture as ramrod straight as a soldier at parade rest, her black robe flowing in immaculate folds over her frame, the white lace collar at her neck a pristine, almost ethereal emblem of the judicial decorum she embodied even in the midst of such chaos and controversy. She was 53 years old, a mother of 7 children ranging from toddlers to teenagers, a former Notre Dame law professor who had risen through the ranks with a blend of intellectual rigor, unshakable faith, and a commitment to originalism that had made her one of the most influential jurists of her generation. She was the primary author of Dobbs v. Jackson Women's Health Organization, the landmark 2022 decision that had overturned Roe v. Wade and returned the regulation of abortion to the states, unleashing a torrent of legal, social, and political upheaval that still reverberated across the nation 3 years later, from the patchwork of state bans in the South to the sanctuary policies in the Northeast. But in the turbulent landscape of 2025, With Trump's second term mired in scandals, legal battles, and the aftershocks of the 2024 election, Barrett had become an unlikely and polarizing lightning rod, hailed as a saint by social conservatives for her role in Dobbs, vilified by liberals as the architect of women's suffering, and now, increasingly, viewed with suspicion by even some on the right, who saw her refusal to endorse full federal abortion overreach as a betrayal of the movement she had helped lead. Her face, framed by her signature bob haircut with its subtle highlights catching the light from the chandeliers, showed no visible strain, no crack in the facade, but those who knew her intimately, her law clerks who had served under her for nearly a decade, the fellow justices who had deliberated with her in the private conferences of the East Room, could discern the subtle tension in the set of her jaw, the way her left hand rested on the bench with fingers interlaced but the thumb tapping a silent, rhythmic once-twice pattern against her ring finger, a telltale sign of the storm brewing beneath her calm exterior. This wasn't just another oral argument in the long line of cases that defined the court's docket. This was a siege, a direct assault on the integrity of the judiciary from the executive branch, and Barrett was the frontline defender, the shield between tradition and tyranny, between the rule of law and the rule of men. The case that had brought them all together was City of New York v. United States Department of Justice, a constitutional juggernaut of a challenge that had the entire country holding its breath, a case that pitted the raw power of the presidency against the deliberative might of the judiciary in a battle over the soul of immigration justice in America. It stemmed directly from Executive Order 14,287, signed into law by President Donald J. Trump on January 25, 2025, his first full day back in the Oval Office after the bitterly contested 2024 election that had seen him reclaim the White House by the slimmest of margins, amid cries of fraud from one side and celebrations of vindication from the other. The order was nothing short of a bombshell, a seismic shift in policy that declared immigration, courts, a national security emergency of unprecedented scale, authorizing the mass firing of 139 immigration judges with backgrounds in immigrant defense work or prior representation of non-citizens, replacing them with 600 military lawyers and DOJ loyalists to streamline deportations and restore integrity to the system, effectively turning the courts into deportation assembly lines. Lower courts in New York, California, and Illinois had struck it down within 48 hours, citing violations of civil service protections under the Administrative Procedure Act, due process under the Fifth Amendment, and the separation of powers doctrine, labeling it an unconstitutional purge designed to politicize the judiciary and deny immigrants their day in court. Now standing at the petitioner's lectern was Zohran Mamdani, the 34-year-old Democratic Socialist who had just won a stunning upset in the November 4, 2025, NYC mayoral election, defeating former Governor Andrew Cuomo, running as an independent, and Republican Curtis Sliwa by a margin of 9 points, becoming the first Muslim and South Asian mayor in the city's history, the youngest in over a century, and a symbol of the progressive wave that had swept through New York despite $40 million in billionaire spending against him. His green blazer was a bold, defiant contrast to the court's somber tones, his folder thick with documents and binders, his eyes locked on Barrett with the fire of a community organizer who had risen from Queen's Assemblyman to national icon, his voice carrying the grit of the streets he had fought for since his days leading taxi debt strikes and rent control campaigns. Mamdani gripped the edges of the lectern with hands that had shaken thousands in union halls and street protests, his Queen's accent carrying the grit of the streets and the rhythm of the subway he rode to his first campaign event. Your Honours, this isn't about national security, it's about suppression of the voices that dare to defend the vulnerable. In New York City alone, 139 firings have left immigrant families in limbo, deportation backlogs exploding to 4 million cases, and justice delayed or denied for the most vulnerable among us. Justice Barrett, you have spoken of due process as sacred, a cornerstone of our democracy. This executive order is its desecration, judges targeted not for incompetence, but for the crime of having defended immigrants in their previous work, replaced by military enforcers who see due process as an obstacle to efficiency. The Constitution demands fairness, not fear. It demands courts that serve justice, not politics. The gallery erupted in a cacophony of raw emotion, cheers and applause thundering from the progressive bloc on the left side of the hall, fists pumping in the air as no human is illegal, rippled through the crowd like a wave crashing on the shore, boos and hisses exploding from the conservative section on the right, a man in a red tie shouting "traitor," before a bailiff grabbed his arm and dragged him toward the exit, his heels scraping the marble like nails on a chalkboard. A billionaire donor in the back, one of the $40 million anti-Mamdani funders from the election, a hedge fund manager with a net worth in the billions, whispered to his aide, "This kid's a disaster, he's going to ruin the city," his face twisted in disdain. Chief Justice John Roberts banged his gavel so hard the handle cracked audibly, the sharp crack echoing off the vaulted ceiling like a rifle shot in a canyon. But the damage was done. The live stream chat was a warzone of all caps. "Mamdani's a hero," versus "deport all." 2.4 million comments flooding in 90 seconds, the numbers flashing on a side monitor like a slot machine hitting jackpot after jackpot, each tick a reminder of how this hearing was not just legal theatre, but a global spectacle watched by millions who saw in it the future of their city, their country, their world. Barrett waited for the noise to die down, her expression unchanging, a statue of composure amid the storm, then leaned forward into her microphone, her voice cutting through the din like a scalpel through silk, precise and unyielding, every syllable weighted with the authority of her years on the bench. "Mayor Mamdani, your petition alleges profound constitutional violations in Executive Order 14,287, but the executive branch has broad authority in immigration enforcement under precedents like Trump v. Hawaii and INS v. Chadha. The firings, while drastic, could be framed as administrative restructuring. How does this rise to the level of an Article III crisis that warrants this court's intervention?" Mamdani didn't flinch or waver, leaning into the microphone with the same unyielding passion that had mobilized 2 million voters in his mayoral upset, his eyes locking onto Barrett's with the piercing intensity that had made him a sensation on platforms like Instagram and TikTok, where his videos routinely racked up millions of views. Trump v. Hawaii was about temporary travel bans, not the mass purging of an independent judiciary. But let's talk authority and accountability. The firings weren't random or merit-based. 70% of those dismissed had prior experience with the ACLU, Catholic Legal Immigration Network, or non-profit defense work. Coincidence, or coordination with the donors who poured $40 million into my election to ensure a mayor who would clean house in the courts? The word coordination landed in the room like a grenade with the pin pulled, the pin clattering to the floor in slow motion. Barrett's eyes narrowed to slits, the same flicker of recognition and wariness she'd shown in previous hearings, a flicker that said she knew exactly where this was heading. The other justices shifted in their seats, Kagan with a raised eyebrow and a slight smirk, Sotomayor jotting notes with furious speed, Thomas remaining stone-faced as always, Alito scribbling something in the margins of his brief, Gorsuch tapping his pen against his pad in a rhythm that betrayed his impatience, Kavanaugh fidgeting with his tie, and Jackson observing with the quiet intensity of someone who had lived the immigration system's inequities firsthand. Coordination with whom, Mayor Mamdani? Be specific, or this remains speculation. Mamdani opened his folder with a deliberate snap, the sound echoing like a starting pistol. "With the donors who spent $40 million to stop my election, and now pressure this court to recuse you from cases that could protect New York City's immigrants. Exhibit A, the texts time-stamped, verified. From the billionaire class to Trump's DOJ team." He held up his phone, the screen glinting under the chandeliers. The overhead projector, a state-of-the-art 4K laser system installed during the 2024 renovation to handle the surge in live-stream demands, hummed to life, its fan whirring softly as the first text filled the massive screen behind the bench in crisp, high-definition detail, the words so sharp they could be read from the back row without squinting, each character a dagger aimed at the heart of the administration. Texts of Bill Ackman to MATTHEWWHITAKR, Nov 6, 2025, 2:14 a.m. Ackman Mamdani win is RIGGED. Fire NYC judges make him beg for federal aid. $5 more for compliance. Use the pack. Whitaker on it. Barrett needs nudge recuse threat. Heritage amicus ready. Ackman do it for NYC's future. $2 more if she flips. Whitaker signal set. Montana protocol activated. The chamber detonated in a symphony of chaos that would echo through history books and viral videos for generations. Screams pierced the air like shrapnel, traitor. From the right, justice. From the left, fists pounded on pews with the rhythm of war drums. A pro-Trump activist in the third row surged to his feet shouting fake news. Before a bailiff grabbed his arm and dragged him toward the exit, his heels scraping the marble like nails on a chalkboard. A billionaire donor in the back, one of the $40 million anti-Mamdani funders, a hedge fund manager with a net worth in the billions and a face red with fury, whispered to his aide, "This kid's a disaster, he's going to ruin the city, and now he's dragging the court into it," his voice trembling with rage. Chief Justice John Roberts banged his gavel so hard the handle cracked audibly, the sharp crack echoing off the vaulted ceiling like a rifle shot in a canyon. But the damage was done. The live stream chat was a warzone of all caps. "Mamdani's a hero. Versus deport all." 2.4 million comments flooding in 90 seconds, the numbers flashing on a side monitor like a slot machine hitting jackpot after jackpot, each tick a reminder of how this hearing was not just legal theatre, but a global spectacle watched by millions who saw in it the future of their city, their country, their world. Barrett waited for the noise to die down, her expression unchanging, a statue of composure amid the storm, then leaned forward into her microphone, her voice cutting through the din like a scalpel through silk, precise and unyielding, every syllable weighted with the authority of her years on the bench and the weight of the precedent she had helped shape. "Mayor Mamdani, this thread you have projected bears the DOJ seal and blockchain verification for authenticity. If genuine, and the metadata suggests it is, it constitutes a profound breach of Canon 3 on ex parte communications and Article III on judicial independence. But hearsay is not evidence. Who is the source, and what is the chain of custody?" Mamdani smiled, a subtle, knowing curve of his lips that sent another ripple through the room, the kind of smile that had won him the election against all odds. Exhibit B, the chain and the call log. The source is Aisha Rahman, 29, former DOJ paralegal in the Immigration Division, fired on October 15 after refusing to redact these texts during a routine ethics review. She was CC'd as the compliance officer for the NYC Integrity PAC, the same group funded by the $40 million donors who tried to bury my campaign. From the respondents' table, a woman rose. Aisha Rahman, 29, a young Pakistani-American with sharp features and a hijab pinned with a NYC flag pin, her hands trembling but her voice steady as she held up a sealed USB drive and a stack of affidavits. She had been a paralegal in the DOJ's immigration section for 3 years, privy to the inner workings of the firings, until her refusal to delete the texts led to her termination and a whistleblower lawsuit filed under the Intelligence Community Whistleblower Protection Act. "Your Honor, I have the full chain 87 messages, IP traced to Ackman's Hamptons estate and Whitaker's DOJ office, sent via Signal alias Nick Fix. I was CC'd as paralegal for review. The metadata is intact, timestamps, geolocation, encryption keys, and the call log 12 calls between Whitaker and Ackman between Nov 5 and Nov 8, discussing Barrett nudge and recusal script for the amicus brief." She handed the drive to the clerk, who plugged it into the projector. The screen cycled through page after page, each one a dagger. Donor ledger, $40 M from Ackman singer Adelson Jr., and Lauder family to NYC Integrity PAC, $12 M post-election for judicial outreach and amicus funding. Email chain, Whitaker to Barrett's clerk, Nov 8, 3:17 a.m., review attached amicus heritage filed, recusal advised for optics, $2 M incentive for compliance. Audio clip, Trump to Ackman Nov 9, 3:12 a.m., if Barrett doesn't recuse we primary her donors, threaten her kids' schools, make her resign, she's my pick but she's weak, time to finish her. The audio played, Trump's voice tinny but unmistakable, filling the chamber like smoke from a fire. Silence, then chaos. Justice Kagan covered her mouth with her hand, Justice Sotomayor leaned forward, her eyes blazing, Justice Thomas stared impassively at the screen, Justice Alito cursed under his breath, his pen snapping in his hand, Justice Gorsuch tapped his pen faster, the rhythm now frantic, Justice Kavanaugh fidgeted with his tie, loosening it. Justice Jackson observed with the quiet intensity of someone who had lived the immigration system's inequities firsthand. Barrett stood, her voice cutting through the din like a blade through fog. "This is not influence, this is extortion, effective immediately, and I will repeat this for the record and for the millions watching. Executive Order 14,287, is SDAYD nationwide, effective immediately. All 139 fired immigration judges are reinstated with full back pay and seniority. I recuse from all immigration cases involving NYC or the DOJ donors named in the ledger. The Judicial Conference convenes tomorrow, subpoenas for Ackman, Whitaker and the PAC. This court refers the matter to the FBI for criminal investigation under 18 U.S.C. Section 1503, obstruction of justice. The gavel cracked like thunder. The gallery exploded, cheers, screams, a water bottle hurled from the balcony splashing a Fox News cameraman. Mamdani Memo rocketed to 20 million posts in 2 hours. TikTok remixes of Trump's Finish Her voice went viral with 8M views. CA Prop 50 passed that night, flipping 5 congressional seats to Democrats, redrawing lines to counter Texas gerrymanders, and boosting the party's House chances in 2026. Trump, watching from Air Force One en route to a Mar-a-Lago fundraiser, tweeted, "Fake win, rigged NYC Mamdani is illegal, Barrett's a traitor, lock him up MAGA." Fallout 72 hours of hellfire. Mamdani Memo, 20M posts. 2.8 B impressions. Ackman deleted X, fled to Israel. Trump held a 3-hour Mar-a-Lago rant. Witch hunt, Barrett's the real criminal. 67M views. Mamdani went viral with a tweet. The oath is to the people, not billionaires. 12M likes. NYC reinstated judges. Deportation backlog dropped 40% in 30 days. Congress passed Judicial Protection Act 2, 398-37. NYC funding restored. Prop 50 redistricting flipped 5 seats, countering Texas gerrymander. NY approval hit 64%, highest in 25 years. 1 month later, Barrett's chambers, 11:47 p.m. The room was dimly lit by a single desk lamp. Barrett sat at her desk, the framed text thread on the wall like a scar. Her clerk knocked. Justice Mamdani sent a letter. She opened it. "You didn't just save judges, you saved democracy, for the children, all of them. Z." She folded it, slipped it into her robe and stood. The court would never be the same. Viral clapback vault, final verdict. This wasn't just a hearing, it was redemption. A mayor versus billionaires. A justice versus her creator. A court that bled then healed. A nation that chose people over power. Drop a fire if Barrett just became untouchable. Comment, should Trump be barred from SCOTUS forever? Viral clapback vault, where texts meet truth and truth redraws the map.